All right, friends, so this week we have been brainstorming and generating a lot of ideas on things that we are an expert at. And as I shared with you before, I chose my topic, my main concept is going to be gardening. And then I took that concept and then I broke it up into 4 different ideas that I could write about. I may not write about all 4, but I've generated some ideas if I choose to. For today, we're going to go ahead and get started on our rough draft. And just remember, a rough draft is that. It's going to be rough. It's not going to be pretty. It doesn't have to have everything spelled correctly. I just want to do my best to get my thoughts down on paper, and then I can go back and always polish it up. So again, my topic, I'm going to model for you guys. You guys are going to continue with your rough draft using the choice that you chose for your expertise. So if you were an expert at gaming, if you were an expert at a specific sport, that's what you're going to write about in the next step. So let's go ahead and get started, and I will model for you my rough draft on gardening. So for right now, I'm just going to focus, I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction. Now I usually start with the body of my paper, which will be these details, but I am going to start with an introduction so that I have a little bit to go from later. And then I'm going to focus on what I think would be logically the first step, which would be the getting soil ready and the planting season. Okay, so I'm going to take these ideas that I've generated already, and I'm going to go ahead and get started on my rough draft. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you have your title, and in the top right, if you could put your date, that would be great as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with just 1 or 2 sentences for my introduction on gardening. So when I think about gardening, I think it's a really fun hobby to have. So I'm going to say gardening is a fun hobby to have, but there's a lot that you have to think about before planting. There are several steps that have to be taken in order to have a successful harvest. I think that's good for now for my intro. And again, I can always go back and cut this up. I can move things around. This is a rough draft, okay? So again, my first concept that I thought I was going to write about was preparing the soil, okay? So the next part, I really need to make sure that my sentences always go back to the concept of preparing my soil in some way or another, okay? So before you can plant anything, you have to pay close attention. Notice my brain works a little bit faster than my hand does, and that's okay. Before you can plant anything, you have to pay close attention to your soil. Is it dry or is it moist? Is it clay or is it more sandy? You may even have to clear the ground. you can remove rocks or debris from the area. So I'm going to go back and make sure, I'm going to read that to myself and make sure it makes sense. Before you can plant anything, you have to pay close attention to your soil. Is it dry or is it moist? Is it clay or is it more sandy? You may even have to clear the ground a little. You can remove rocks or debris from the area. So what's a good way that I could finish this paragraph off? For now, anyway. So let's just say we want to make sure we have the best soil to begin with so that we can have a great harvest. You can remove rocks or debris from the area, and we want to make sure we have the best soil to begin with so that we can have a great harvest. So I think I've covered what I wanted to, talking about the soil. So what I would do next is I would go back to my web and I would take a look at the ideas that I had already brainstormed. So for instance, I just wrote about getting soil ready. So I have planting season, sun and water, and harvesting. So I think my next logical step would be to write about the planting season. And again, I'm going to take the details that I've already written down and I'm just going to create sentences now and elaborate a little bit more for my readers. So again, brainstorming is really important when it comes to your rough draft because the more detail I can put here, the easier it is when I start to actually form my composition. So I can't wait to see what you guys come up with and what you guys think that you are an expert at. And I know that I will probably learn a bunch of cool information from you guys. So enjoy the process and start writing.